Welcome back on in, everybody, to a very special Thanksgiving episode of the StricklyNFL podcast. This is going to be coming out after Thanksgiving, but we are recording on Thanksgiving. So we wanted to say thank you in advance to everybody who tunes in, everybody who rocks with us over here at the Strickland, not just with our podcast. There is no Des today, unfortunately. Some travel stuff going on between college and going back home, so no Des today. We do have Nick's tape, aka Luca, though, filling on in. So it's gonna be me and Luca today. How we doing, Luca? How we feeling?
You know, man, about the Giants, not great, but
Yep.
we don't have to really talk about them that much. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Again, echoing Khan. We appreciate you guys for all the support always. Again, not only on Strictly NFL, but Discord, Twitter, Blue Sky, Patreon, YouTube, all of it. We appreciate you guys for everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we get too far into things, I just want to remind everybody, like Luca just said, the Strickland does have a Patreon with a $3 tier, $6 tier, $9 tier, and so on and so forth, with different awesome perks as you scale up. The full episode of this podcast will be behind the $9 tier. If anybody's listening on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all that good stuff, you're going to get the preview. If you go into the $9 Patreon tier, you'll get the full podcast and every other full Strictly NFL podcast that we've done. So you also have like the $3 tier is the Discord tier, I believe. I fucking love our Discord so much.
Great place.
It's the perfect like combination of like just being a regular fan, but like being toxic or like being an idiot at times.
Yeah,
and
all the good stuff.
It makes me feel like, you know, like I'm not totally batshit crazy about everything sports related.
Exactly.
And then our sponsor for this podcast is BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection on everything from odds on football, NBA, NHL, and even entertainment and political props. I wonder if WWE falls into that entertainment section with Survivor
It has
Series
to.
coming up.
Bet on the Costco, guys.
I think it does. That's AEW, by the way, you clown.
Oh, I'm a fraud. I apologize.
So you can head over to BetOnline today to get in all the action with America's most trusted site for all online wagering. BetOnline, the game starts here. Unfortunately, the Giants season is over. And it's kind of been over for a while, but like that was really a funeral in many ways for the Giants this weekend. I am wildly fucking frustrated and aggravated and pissed off, and every single word in the book that you can throw at this team, that's just what I am with them. Like every negative word is my mood with the Giants right now. And as the guest for this podcast, I wanted to give you the floor and have a chance, you know, because I rant about this team every single fucking week, and I want to give you your chance to kind of say your piece about them. So I know you had a lot on your mind. Take it away, brother.
I mean, I don't even know where to start, right? We can start with the defense if we wanted to, because, I mean, just about as pathetic a performance as you can get coming off of all the news jumble in Giants land from this past week, from, you know, Shane and Dable seats getting hotter to the Daniel Jones debacle to the locker room, I guess, not backing one person fully, and you know that kind of dividing the locker room. But I feel like we just have to start, or I just have to start with the defense. The Bucs scored 30 points. They probably could have scored 60 if they actually tried the whole game, because I know the Giants defense did not. It was just a pathetic performance overall. The defense looked completely disinterested in, you know, taking on blockers or tackling any ball carrier.
Yep. Thank you, Bobby America.
Yeah, I'm glad you're making your money out there and you have the C on your chest, buddy. I don't really have I might have had a lot to say on Sunday. At this point, I genuinely could not give less of a fuck about this team right now. You know, Dex is we talked about this a little bit last night. I would really have liked Dex to back his coach as the leader of this team.
Yeah.
And the fact that he didn't, regardless of what his personal feelings are about Daniel Jones, I just don't think you can risk losing the locker room with 6 weeks to go like the Giants have. And it's quite obvious the locker room is not there anymore. It's even more obvious that Dable is going to be fired at the end of the year. I'm indifferent at this point. But it just sucks, man, because somehow I came into this year having a little bit of hope with the draft class that Shane had this year, and, a better O-line, and let's see some guys on the defense step up, and the Burns trade, and just none of it came to fruition. And at this point, I'm just hoping that DeVito or Locke doesn't win any meaningless games, so we stick at a good draft spot.
Yeah, it's just like it's really crazy to see what Daniel Jones of all people did to this fucking locker room. Like, for Daniel Jones to get benched after clearly holding back the offense, after overthrowing Malik Neighbors how many times in a game, after not being able to read a defense, after throwing to the wrong spot, even if it's the right person in the right coverage. How do they stick up for this guy? Like, how?
He has to be like Jesus Christ as a person or something.
Like,
because
he
there's
has
no
to be
reason.
picking up the tab for every single dinner. That's the only reason. Like, it's beyond my fucking wildest imagination why anybody on this team would be like heartbroken, because it seems like they're fucking heartbroken about Dano not being there. So it's different. Like, every single person on that team, is somebody who you call a brother, and the cliche, you go to war with every Sunday and all that good stuff. Totally understand that. But to act like Joe Shane killed your dog because he cut Daniel Jones is a kind of like fucking crazy overreaction. And then the team just comes out lifeless. Doesn't seem like they give a fucking shit about winning that game. Doesn't seem like they could give one fucking shit about supporting Tommy DeVito, who's still second-year quarterback, still fucking has like, what, 7 career starts maybe?
And he was undrafted, so it's not like he went through and was scouted by like one particular team or anything and then went there, right? He still needed that support as well.
Yeah, so like for everybody to just mail it in, not care. I mean, Brian Dable is just the definition of a dead man walking. Like, he is week 4 Rob Saleh right now. And look, I'm just glad that last week, while I wanted to say that I wanted to bring Shannon Dable back, the stuff in front of me was saying, don't do it. And I put, my emotion aside on what I felt about them, and I said, nah, they deserve to be fired at this current point in time. And the case has only gotten stronger, off of that game against the Bucs. So we're going to be shopping, I think, for an entirely new regime. There's reports about Shane staying potentially through the head coach change. I don't know, man. Like, I just don't see that happening.
I don't see how you can do that. We went over it extensively last episode, but the dude is fucking 7. Well, we're going to have to update it now. I think we called it 8 for 24 last episode, including Banks and JMS's wins. I don't believe that anymore. I just genuinely cannot like sit there and watch JMS get run over every fucking play without, like, you can't turn into a complete muffin of a center as soon as Andrew Thomas goes out. And I know how important blindside and all pro blindside blocker is. That can't be overstated, that loss. But at the end of the day, if you need him to be a good player, then you're just not a good player yourself. And that's unfortunate. And I think last episode I said I didn't really care if they got fired. I just don't know who I would replace them with. That's still the case. But now I don't. I actually would like them to be fired. And again, I just don't see how you can bring Shane back without also bringing Dable back. And to be clear, I don't think either of them should be back, but I just like the duo pair coming in and then one of them getting more time when they've both failed to really elevate this team doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's just so in thinking about the future of this team, I think that if Belichick was to come in, it has to be
breaking news. Quarterback Tommy DeVito, who stayed behind in New York to get an MRI, is not expected to play today. Drew Lock is slated to start for the Giants.
Okay. I hope we don't win.
I hope we don't win either. I think we have a better chance of winning now.
I agree. I agree for sure.
Because he'll at least, take shots.
I think John Mara wants to bring in Belichick. I think that's what it has been since, he left New England at the end of the season. I think that's why he didn't take a job. All these different things. I think Bill Belichick is in our future. What that says to me is that Shane will get fired because I don't think Belichick is coming here and not going to have total control over personnel, or at least partial control. He is a control freak. He had that in New England. I don't think he'd come here if we don't give him that. So, with that being said, if that were to happen, I think this franchise is dead for another 2-3 years until
2-3.
Yeah, until he would get fired again.
I mean, if he gave Gettleman 4, you don't think he's giving Belichick 4?
I think he's giving him 3.
I don't fucking want to see that guy in Giants blue and red and white ever, to be honest with you.
I agree. And, like, the whole he won championships here is like, yeah.
That was like 70 years ago, dude.
Congrats. Yeah. Like, Dave Gettleman got the job because he won a championship here. Yeah. That
did really
great
well.
logic. Great
awesome,
logic
guys.
from John Mara. So, Belichick to me is a total, like, that makes the lifeline of this team just go absolutely fucking kaput. This team's going to have nothing if they hire Bill Belichick. I think it'll be the worst hire that they've made since Gettleman, in all honesty. If you were to fire Dable and not fire Shane, lame duck GM, you are not going to get your preferred head coach hire. It will probably not be a good head coach because he will not be highly sought after by others. Probably another shit situation next year. All right. I mean, you're going to have a 1-year head coach. You're going to have Shane Bowen, second year, like, coaching for his job. I wouldn't be surprised. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, you might not even deserve a job after this year.
Yeah, he might not. He might get fired. You're going to have Carmen Basillo. He might leave.
That would suck. I really like Basillo. And he's done wonders for this O-line until both tackles got hurt.
The best coach on this staff. Why would he stay here with how much uncertainty they have? Makes no sense for him. He can go out and get pretty much any O-line coach job opening that he wants to. So this staff, this entire regime, it looks grim. And people can talk about Brandon Brown all they fucking want to. I understand Brandon Brown talked very well in Hard Knocks. We don't know any draft pick specifically that was attributed to him, that he kind of like was in Joe Shane's ear and was saying, hey, do this or don't do this. We really need that. Like, yeah, he's around the facility. Fucking whoop-de-doo. He's the fucking assistant GM. He's supposed to be, right? I understand he came from the Eagles. Whoop-de-fucking-do. Joe Douglas came from the Eagles too. You don't know if Brandon Brown is good. And I see people posting about firing Joe Shane and elevating Brandon Brown. That puts you in the same position you are if you just keep on to Joe Shane. Somebody who's been here, somebody who doesn't have a lot of leash, and isn't going to attract the best candidate for the head coach. If anything is done besides firing both Shane and Dable, I think it's a bad move. However, I would still say I think keeping Shane and Dable is better than just firing one of them. And I damn sure believe keeping both of them is better than hiring Bill fucking Belichick. And that's just where I'm going to wrap things up on the Giants. If you want to go any further into them.
No, golf clap. That's all I have.
Nope. Okay. Dope. We had some mock drafts planned, Luca and I. He had the Giants, so I guess we are going to come back to them at some point. But I had the Jets. I don't really do Jets mock drafts too often in season, but in the spirit of the holidays, of Thanksgiving, I said to myself, why not give the Jets fans a little bit of a glimpse into the future? One thing to keep in mind when we look at some of my picks, I made some of these picks expecting marquee players right now on rookie deals on the Jets to be traded by the rookie coming in.
I feel like we might have to talk about that before we move into mocks.
Okay.
No?
So we'll hit it. I was gonna kind of like weave it in, but we could do that right now. I'll just say I think one of Breece Hall or Sauce Gardner are getting shipped out, flat out.
I mean, everyone has to get paid, and you just can't pay everybody.
No,
and also fix that entire roster.
They don't have any more money, really. So it's
what are they paying Rodgers?
I don't know specifically, but I know that it's. I think his money owed is like paid out, but I think his cap hits are still there or something like that.
Let's see. This year he has a $17 million cap hit. Next year he has a $23.5 million cap hit. And the total deal was 3 years, $112.5 million with 75 guaranteed.
So for next season, no. So they have a dead cap hit of $49 million if they cut him.
They do.
Whereas his cap hit is 23. So he is not cuttable, I don't think.
I mean, he is
anything like the DJ,
but it'd be really stupid.
No, they would sink there and like you can't make a move the entire offseason.
The Saints have been doing that for ages, it feels like.
I don't know. I'm usually great with all the cap mechanisms and all that stuff. I've seen in some places they say like the Jets can cut Rodgers because his money's like all paid out or some shit. But that's not what Spotrac says. I don't think there's ever been a situation where you can cut somebody and like they don't have a cap hit while they're still you are not paying them while they still have a cap hit, and while they still have like their signing bonus and stuff prorated out. Like, yeah, that is paid up front, but he has his $2.5 million base salary. So I don't know if that is like what's not being paid out if he gets cut. But if you're cutting him to save $2.5 million, but you're incurring $26 million of dead cap, it just doesn't check out to me. So he's either gonna have to retire or they're gonna have to go into next season with him. I don't really see like this world where he's on another team unless he just totally like bends the knee on whatever restructure has to happen to kind of get him to that team. If that happens, like he's given up all this money, all this dead cap hit, like all that shit's gonna be moved around at some capacity. So the Jets don't get just shitted on, really, in this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, again, like it's almost an impossible situation, right? Because we touched on the dead cap hit. Even if you don't cut him, he's obviously not nearly the quarterback that the Jets thought they were getting when they first signed him, especially after the Achilles tear. I mean, it was an unfortunate thing that happened, but like 40-year-old quarterback tearing his Achilles, you can't really expect him to come back the same. So they have some very, very tough decisions to make surrounding this roster for not only next year, but for the next couple of years moving forward. Because you have to make like the Devontae Adams decision eventually. And then you have to decide, like we talked about at the top of this topic, who are you trading? Because you can't keep everybody. And I probably would. I was going to say I'd probably trade Breece, but honestly, it's 50-50 for me.
I would trade.
I mean, I obviously don't have. Well, yeah. Yeah. I don't disagree.
It's easy,
That
easy
is
for us to say because we don't have emotional attachment to them.
exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But I just don't think like the risk reward, I guess. I don't even know if that's the best way to put it, but Breece Hall, what can you get for him right now? If you could recoup exactly what you gave up to draft him, which is a second round pick, I would do that in a heartbeat. I think he's gonna have one more year on rookie money, which is the upcoming season. Sauce is gonna have his 5th year option. It's gonna get picked up, even if he's played like shit this year. I think he could even net you back a first round pick, and just resetting the timeline on all those guys from a cap standpoint is just as important as resetting it with, like, people talk about the quarterback rookie, salary timeline. If Sauce gets around what he should, right, as a name brand corner in this league, it'll be around high $20 million a season. Breece would get around $12 to $13 million a season, most likely, assuming that he has a good year next year, another year removed off the ACL tear. Presumably the offense wouldn't be fucking horrific wherever he goes. So you are going to save about $40 million on potential extensions, bringing in younger talent. And these are just not the guys who the next regime is going to have drafted anymore. Like, they don't have, just like us, they don't have an attachment to Breece. They don't have an attachment to Sauce, not to Jermaine Johnson, not to, who else is there? Garrett Wilson, even though I'm sure Garrett Wilson would stay.
Yeah.
But even like Quinnen Williams, you could pick so many names out of the hat for whoever you want to talk about. Good players, not people who are going to get any type of loyalty from a new regime. So the roster turnover could be absolutely massive. I'm not entirely sure who else should be on, kind of like looking over their shoulder, but damn sure Sauce and Breece, like, they are probably the best chance for a new regime to get and extract value out of the guys in the rookie deals right now. So in my mock, the Jets had, I believe, the 7th pick it was. So 7th overall, I went Mykel Williams, edge out of Georgia. If you remember him, he went kind of viral for like having insanely fucking long arms during warmups, and people were like, "What the hell is that?"
It's just Slender Man.
It literally just Slender Man. So, Jermaine, Achilles tear, right? And we just talked about how he's another guy on the rookie deal. Maybe could get moved, even though I think it would be unlikely. They just need more juice in the edge room, man. Like, Hassan Reddick is probably not gonna come back at any capacity, I wouldn't imagine. What are you looking at after that? Like, yeah, you got guys who can kind of play in like a 3-4 edge position. Like Clemens can kind of step out there and not really be on the edge, but kind of keep the edge in the run game more so in the pass game. They just need a lot more. Yeah, like Will McDonald's a stud, obviously. But you're gonna have no Reddick. You're gonna have Jermaine off of the Achilles tear.
There's not a lot of juice in that room.
You need more. Yeah, you need more. So Mykel and Will McDonald is two of like the most lanky fucking freak shows in the league on the same line, which would be cool. It's crazy to see what Will's doing, like at his weight, like not really adding any size in the off season or adding minimal size. It makes me just think about, this guy didn't play last year, but like he came back as the same person physically and just is better now. Kind of questioning the coaching staff, but whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a fair thing to do for both New York teams.
Do you want to kind of like bounce back and forth and go first round, anything like that?
I mean, what did you draft? Did you mock the entire draft?
I did 5 picks
for the Jets.
Yeah, okay. I did 5.
All right. So the Giants currently have, I do like that idea. The Giants currently have the 2nd pick in the NFL draft, with the same record as the 2-9 Jaguars. So in the mock draft that I have, Abdul Carter went number 1 to Jacksonville. And I don't really like doing trades in mocks because they're usually not entirely accurate to what trade ups or trade downs would look like. With that being said, I stayed put at number 2 and selected Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Is it high? Maybe. Also, I didn't really want to take a quarterback in this first mock because every person on planet Earth knows the Giants need and want a quarterback. So I want to go a little bit of, excuse me, a little bit of a different route. And we've talked about plenty of times over the course of the season how disappointing Deontay Banks has been as a first-round corner. So why not give him a chance to grow as a CB2 potentially, and then have an absolute stud in Will Johnson slot in there at CB1. I believe he's 6'2".
He's prototype size. I don't know what his exact measurables are, but he's prototype.
He is ginormous. He is 6'2", 202 pounds. I mean, just a ridiculous athlete. You could obviously, the athleticism flashes, the potential flashes. Literally, I mean, he's only 20. He's not even 22 yet. He'll be 20. He'll be just turning 22 by the time the draft rolls around, or just have turned 22. He ran a 4.44 40. I mean, just everything you want.
He's
everything you want in a prototypical cornerback one, right? And we've seen teams draft cornerbacks high before and it pan out, at least for a couple of years. You know, Sauce to the Jets was good until this year, largely good until this year. Derek Stingley a couple of years ago to Houston. And it just doesn't seem like a bad idea to potentially shore up this defense even more, because I think the defense has significantly more work to be done on it than the offense does until it becomes like a consistent top 10 unit in the league. Because to be honest, with the O-line, and if people are healthy, and then you get a wide receiver or 2 in the draft and free agency, you have Tracy. Even if you don't want to keep, or I mean, even if you want to keep Singletary, that's still not a bad running back tandem. And then there's the QB hole, right? You have Malik. You have Wandale. We might have Slayton. Who the fuck knows? But the defense has just been way too inconsistent for me to not take a surefire stud pick at number 2 in Will Johnson.
Yeah, I really don't blame you for that, because assuming that the next regime is the people making this pick, they don't need to draft a quarterback for their job. They don't need, to even pick at the number 2 spot, right? So you could be looking at a trade back from 2 to 4 to 5 to 6, and there is going to be a CB1 there, whether it's Travis Hunter or it's Will Johnson. I think I'd take Travis Hunter over Will Johnson, but that's just me, like, just still, November 28th, fucking Thanksgiving. There's no real rankings yet made up in my mind. So all I want to say is they have a chance, right? Joe Shane had this chance as well, coming in picks 5 and 7. Went Kayvon, went Evan Neal. This sets the tone for whoever comes in to potentially replace Joe Shane. And I don't think they would have spent it on a quarterback. I don't think they're going to spend it on a receiver, since we just got Malik Neighbors. Maybe I could see Will Campbell going here, a tackle out of LSU, who's absolute stud.
I mean, or even Mason Graham potentially.
Yeah, maybe.
We just don't have a fucking DD2.
Yeah, so
DD2.
It's tough to really parse out this point in time, but I just think you have Illuminor, right? Like, who's shown you he can be an above average right tackle. D tackles are so. It's really fucking shocking that they haven't found a good running mate for Dex in 3 seasons, because it's so easy to find I don't want to say like a mid-tier D tackle, but to find somebody who's just plug and play for a reasonable price. Like we thought we had that in Nacho. He's not been that. So I do think cornerback is, the way to attack this early draft pick. And they might even be in a spot as well. We mentioned earlier with the Jets potentially trading some of their guys. They might be in a spot where they don't like Deontay Banks, and they could ship Banks out of here, right? And then you're looking at bringing in a cornerback 1 in the early part of the first round. And then with all the money we have, I've tweeted out multiple times, we're going to have about $70 million in cap space. They could be looking at signing a guy like DJ Reed, who I'm a big fan of, to be cornerback 2.